Making the point, why does this continue to happen at our schools? We continue to get more response in from what happened today. I'd like to bring in now Texas State Representative Chris Turner. Representative Turner, thank you for being with us. Any more details on Timothy Simpkins' background and why he engaged in this fight and brought a gun to school?
You've reported that Mr. Simpkins, the suspect, was taken into custody a short time ago, and the investigation is ongoing. The Grand Prairie Police Department report that they recovered a firearm in the street in Grand Prairie, which is the city of Grand Prairie is close to Timberview High School, and they're assessing whether that is in fact the firearm that was used in the shootings earlier today. But no additional information that I have at this time. I think what's most important is that the victims, three victims who are hospitalized, two of them are reported to be doing well. One apparently has serious injuries, but is hopeful that he will recover as well.
And Chris, if I could ask you a question that we just asked to one of the teachers there. You know, we hear about these constantly. We heard a description inside a classroom as the students who led the way with the self-defense techniques that they've been taught, 15-year-old kids. And that is a terrible judgment on our country that our children are expert at essentially combat self-defense. So if I can ask you, how do you think a gun made it into that high school, and what does it say about where we are?
Yeah, it really is eye-opening listening to this firsthand report of that instructor whose students barricaded the door. And it is just remarkable that kids in the United States today, and here in Texas, all across the country, are trained for active shooter situations and active shooter drills. And, you know, how the student had possessed a gun to begin with, and then how the student got the gun into the school and was able to shoot three people, obviously is going to be the subject of investigations going forward. But clearly it was illegal for the student to have the gun at the school, and we need to get to the bottom of how that happened. But this underscores the fact that there is far too much availability of guns in this country, and particularly here in Texas, and how this student acquired a firearm and was able to bring it into his high school. We got to get to the bottom of it. We got to figure out how school officials and local law enforcement can prevent that from happening again.
And Representative, I am just getting an update here now from the Arlington Police Department about those four victims. A 15-year-old male in critical condition, we're now told. 25-year-old male in good condition. That could possibly be a member of the staff, one of the teachers. Teenage female in good condition, expected to be discharged soon from the hospital. And then that fourth victim was treated at the scene and released. We did talk about that fourth individual that was injured. You know, looking at what happened today and what we've been witnessing around the country, these types of shootings, and how it's sadly become habitual. You know, what can you do as a state legislator there about what's happening, not just in your state, but across the nation, to avoid these types of altercations and shootings and bringing weapons onto school grounds?
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a lot that policymakers can do and should do. And as we know, this is not the first school shooting in Texas, and certainly not the first in the country. And while this differs, say, from the Santa Fe, Texas shooting a few years ago, that this was not, evidently this shooting originated in a fight between students as opposed to someone coming to try to take out as many students as possible, as happened in Santa Fe or Columbine. Nonetheless, the fact that someone was able to bring a gun into a school and use it and seriously injure several people, it could have killed them, is simply unacceptable. And I've spent a number of, over the years, I've been at Timberview High School a number of times. It's a great school, great student body, and dedicated faculty and staff there. And it just is sickening to see this happening to them today. I think what lawmakers have to do is a number of things. One, and we don't know the details in this case yet, But right now in Texas, if your gun is stolen, it's not required by law that you report a stolen gun to law enforcement. That's something that is easy to fix, and we ought to do that. But unfortunately, the Republican leadership has said no. We ought to close the gun show loophole to see that everyone who purchases a gun is subject to a comprehensive background check. That's not the law in Texas currently. And we heard a lot of talk from Republican leaders after a number of other shootings, particularly the El Paso shooting 2 years ago, that now they were going to get serious and seriously consider legislation to restrict the availability of firearms falling into the hands of people that shouldn't have them. But it was all talk and no action. And in fact, the legislature went the opposite direction this year in passing a permitless carry bill, where someone doesn't have to have any training or a license to carry a handgun. Now, that's not, I'm not connecting that law with this incident today. They're unrelated. But it underscores this lackadaisical attitudes toward the serious epidemic of gun violence in this country and the availability and accessibility of guns to people who clearly should not have them, like the student at Timberview High School.
All right. Texas State Representative Chris Turner, thank you very much for being with us on this difficult day. And good luck to you and all your constituents there.
Thank you for having me.